Bryson Barnes just committed to Utah State, meaning he will face his former team, Utah Football, in 2024. What does it mean? And Utah just added a safety from a Pac-12 team. Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcasts. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Appreciate all of you who have done so already. And if you have not, now is your chance. We love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments, as well as in various platforms on social media, such as Locked On Utes on Twitter. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our glorious friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, I want to talk about a few things, whether it's the Utah Gymnastics team getting a win this past Friday. Also talk about Utah adding a former Stanford safety. But first, have to start with the news that Utah's starting quarterback from a year ago, not by choice, but because of Cam Rising's injury, Bryson Barnes, is now at Utah State, which we were all curious to kind of see where Bryson was going to go. This was always going to be something we were going to talk about, but I feel like now there's a lot more significance to it because Bryson will be facing Utah in 2024 because Utah does make the trip out to Logan. They have a home and home with Utah State, which if Bryson were to stay at Utah State another year, which I know he will have been in college for 4 years after this next one, but he only played in that Rose Bowl game his very first year. So therefore he could use the red shirt there. And even without all the weird and wonky COVID stuff that kind of took place during some of those crazy times, he would still have that fifth year he could use and be the starter once again out in Logan. But on September 14th, Utah will travel out to take on the Aggies at Utah State, and they should be facing Bryson Barnes. There are some other guys there who could win the job, but Bryson, in my opinion, should take it just based on the other quarterbacks on the roster and the experience he's had. And I know that, some Utah fans might say, oh, he's not even good enough to start there just because they're so down on him. But I do feel like we've done a little bit of revisionist history with Bryson Barnes, and we act like the version we saw in the Las Vegas Bowl was the version of Bryson we got all season. That was by far the worst he played all year. There was also the Bryson that helped Utah put themselves in a position to beat Washington. Was Bryson the reason Utah was going to win that game? No, but was he one of the reasons they were very much in that game? Absolutely. Still made a number of nice plays. Helped Utah beat USC and helped them beat a number of inferior opponents, teams that they should beat. And I'm not saying inferior to disrespect them. I'm just saying Utah is better than this team, and they were still able to get a win in part because of Bryson Barnes' play and contributions in those games. When you look at Utah's losses outside the Northwestern one, because that's a bad loss, but bowl games, there's a lot of things that go into that, as we've discussed too, whether it was maybe Bryson wasn't as locked into the study. I'm not accusing him of that, but a number of people have. And I do think it's fair just to say, like, okay, why was your play so much different in this game than all of the other ones? But once again, I don't think it was like he wasn't committed to getting Utah the win. I just think it was weird that if you look at all of the games, why he played so bad in this one, knowing that the other circumstances were there about him trying to find his new home and new school. So that's where it does become interesting in that scenario. But Bryson is capable of making some nice throws, as we said. There's a reason he's in the group of five team, though. He's a Power 5 backup, but he can be a group of 5 starter. I truly believe that because of the couple of nice plays he made. He's not great under duress, as we saw this past season, but given time, comfortable in the pocket. He's not the greatest at going through his progressions, but still made some nice throws and plays. He's fearless when it comes to using his legs, and he's tough, and he's a leader. I think people will like to follow Bryson Barnes to Utah State. I think they'll look at the success and just his ability to step up in big moments, whether it was when this team needed him for the first time at the Rose Bowl back in 2022 against CJ Stroud, and he made that huge throw against Dalton Kincaid when he came in late. Cam Rising, everyone was like, who is the pig farmer? Everyone was scrambling for information on him, this crazy phenomenon. Then the next year gets the big win at Washington State. Without that win, Utah doesn't have a chance to go back to the Pac-12 championship. And then, yes, the Rose Bowl later that year, 23, didn't go well against Penn State. No one on Utah played well in that game. Now, fast forward to this past year, he was not supposed to start, but ended up starting the entire year rather than just a couple of games as we thought he may be, and still helped Utah reach 8 wins. So Bryson has to be commended for that, and very excited for Bryson to have this opportunity too down at Utah State. I think this is a place where he will have a really good chance to do some things against Mountain West teams, and it's fun that he gets a chance to take on his old team as well. I think it's going to be a tall task for Utah State to obviously beat a team like Utah, which is ranked in the top 15 of a reason of the various way too early top 25 polls when you look at some of the talent they return, and of course being Cam Rising. But I'm sure Bryson's excited to have a crack at his old team again. That I don't think there's any ill will towards him leaving, because once again he was brought into Utah to be a walk-on, became a starter, and then Cam Rising's coming back, who's won the school back-to-back Pac-12 championships. I can't imagine that Bryson's like, how dare they go with Cam over me? But anytime that you're not the guy, or just in general, you want to beat your former teams. You know, Bryson will be extra hyped up. Even Utah State, right? Like Utah is obviously viewed, when you think of football in the state of Utah, you think of Utah and BYU before you think of Utah State. So I think anytime Utah State gets a crack at a Utah and a BYU, they're going to be extra motivated to try to go in there and prove that they are better than that team, because most of those guys were, if they were recruited at a Utah versus a Utah State, they'd probably be at Utah. That's just the reality of the situation, especially when you factor in the NIL component now being what it is. So very fun though, an exciting matchup here. It's just funny to think it's not a spring game and we're going to see Cam take the field and then Bryson take the field back and forth. I'm excited for that. And I think once again, the Utah defense should have success against Bryson, right? I said he can do some things well, but we also know there are things he still struggles with: accuracy, misses reads, misses throws, not great under duress. So Utah should still win this game handedly. But if you're telling me going into halftime at Logan, it was a 17-7 game because Bryson Barnes made one or two big plays, and maybe even it's a 17-10 game, I could see a world where that's the case. I don't think that's what would happen, but I have a lot of respect for Bryson, as I think Utah fans should too. Utah fans should be happy for what Bryson did. Once again, getting this Utah team to bowl eligible amidst all the injuries they had, stepping up and making plays. The USC win was incredible, and it doesn't happen without a lot of the plays that Bryson made in his game, particularly with his legs late in that one to put Utah in position to kick that game-winning field goal too. So hats off to Bryson for doing a number of really fun things at Utah. The whole pig farmer story, helping Utah land College game day, even though that game against Oregon did not go well. But once again, not just on Bryson, there were a lot of reasons for that too. So it's exciting that Utah's playing Utah State, and it's exciting to see how Bryson's going to do against his former team. This is one of the things that is just so unique about college football now, right? Like, I know a lot of guys enter the transfer portal, but off the top of my head, I just can't recall a ton of quarterbacks facing off against one of the teams that they left too, especially in a situation like where maybe you'll get a quarterback who was originally committed to go to this school, and then he was at that school, only played a few downs or maybe redshirted there a year or two and then leaves. But you don't get a guy who started an entire year at one school, then left, and then has to take on his school. That doesn't happen a ton. You see a lot of guys leave or change conferences or things of that nature. I guess one of the circumstances for that would be if like Dante Moore does become Oregon's next starting quarterback, and that them and UCLA now both in the Big Ten, he could very well face the Bruins once again. So, but still weird territory with Bryson. It's going to be weird seeing him in the Aggies white and blue jogging out there to take on the Utah Utes. And it's going to be a fun game in Logan, September 14th. Once again, Utah State was a 500 team last year, barely got bowl eligible, end of the year 6-7 because of the bowl loss too. So yes, Utah should of course win that game at Utah State, but I am curious to see how it's going to play out now because of the Bryson Barnes element and factor. Even more intrigued, especially because you get games like the Southern Utah one, where outside of that one being the very first game of the season, there's not as much excitement around it, versus this one, it's like, ooh, Bryson Barnes potential revenge game. It's just something fun to look at the narrative and talk about. Once again, of course, Utah should win, but I'm very curious and just excited to watch Bryson take on Utah in 2024. And the season may be a long way away, and Utah is still working on and building their roster currently. And that's something they've done a good job of, because they just added a very, very promising Stanford safety that we need to break down what he is going to be bringing to the team with all of you in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you about our friends at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have great last-minute deals, all-in-price views from your seats, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. It's even easy to find and buy tickets by navigating their website. You can also have view from your seat, so you know exactly what kind of a deal you're getting. Plus, Game Time has deals and tickets right up to the start of events, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. You can find exclusive slash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concert, comedy, theater events, and so much more. Also, the Game Time Guarantee is here for you. It means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON with a capital L and O in that for $20 off. Download Game Time today and use that code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I also want to talk to all of you about our friends at UCCU. Learn and earn the UCCU mobile banking app that pays your entire family to learn about money. Kids look to parents to become more financially literate. Parents, they don't always know the answers. Learn and earn breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quizzes and trivia. Every time a family member completes a topic, they earn points that can occur and can be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and more. There is age-appropriate content for every member of the family who compete against each other and track their progress on leaderboards. Learn and earn is inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so you can play it anytime, anywhere. The more you play, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you earn. Learn and earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun while becoming more financially literate together. UCCU, love where you bank. All righty. Talking about this Utah team, one thing we knew that they needed to do was continue to add help to their secondary because of the level of players they lost, right? Whether that's a Cole Bishop, Sione Vaki, a JT Broughton, and a Miles Battle. Those are four of your five, maybe four. Okay, well, let's do 4 of your 6 because Teo Johnson obviously played a ton too. So 4 of the main 6 guys. Like, yes, you return your top corner, but your best 2 players in your secondary, I would say, were Cole Bishop and Sione Vaki. So that's where you lost a lot. And Utah's done a very good job kind of filling in those corner needs through the transfer portal and even through the recruiting and a little bit of that with safety. But they didn't have a veteran safety who's played a ton in college, right? Like, or I should say recently, because Nate Ritchie did play those 5 games in the one shortened COVID season, but that was a long time ago, and they took his mission and then looked even a little rusty last year, even though I thought in the Las Vegas Bowl he looked good. Same thing with Jonathan Hall, just not a ton of starting experience there, even though he looked good in the Las Vegas Bowl as well. Hence why Utah only held Northwestern to 14 points. And a couple of the big plays they made through the air, I didn't really feel like there was like one coverage bust, didn't think that was on the safeties. I remember there was one incredible pass that Bryant, the quarterback for Northwestern, threw where he threaded it like right through Ritchie and Hall, where I was like, that's just a good play on offense. And once again, when you hold a team under 14 points, you should absolutely win in college football today. But those are who Utah's 2 projected starters at safety would be. Teo Johnson, we've heard rumors that maybe he could be back at safety. He did that to play a little bit of safety this year too. So I'm curious to see what his role will be. But another guy entering the safety race for Utah is going to be Alaka'i Gilman, who is I apologize if I butchered his name, Stanford safety, who comes over and commits to Utah from the Cardinals, started 9 games for them. He played in and he started the 9 games he played in, had a pick versus Cal in the end zone, also had 50 tackles and 3 passes defended. And just watching a little bit of this guy, you can tell he's a guy who does a good job patrolling the back end of the field. I know we hear Stanford and that they weren't very good, but once again, I don't think that was really a him problem, because let's also look back to 2 years ago when Stanford wasn't very good. And then Utah gets Leavani Damuni, who did a really good job helping out this Utah defense this past year. And we get back for another year. Stanford transfers have done very well at Utah too. Let's go back to Gabe Reed even. So hopefully Gilman can continue that tradition. And I believe he'll be able to. I think he's more of a coverage safety and a guy that's going to be playing that free safety kind of spot, does a good job preventing the defense from making plays over the top, got good speed and range to break up passes too. Also a stout tackler. So he's a guy that I definitely think has a chance to be one of Utah's starting safeties. He has by far the most playing experience of anyone. He's been at Stanford for a few years now, and I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to this Utah team as he we'll see how he factors into that safety rotation once again when it's him, Nate Ritchie, Jonathan Hall, Teo Johnson, and who knows too, could be other guys factored into that as well. So excited to see what Gilman could bring to this defensive backfield. And just speaking of the defensive backfield overall, I just want to give a lot of credit to Morgan Scalley and Sharif Shaw, because once again, the season ends, and from that point on, you lose 4 starters in your defensive backfield. What are you going to do? That's clearly a need. You need to identify it. You need to address it. It's exactly what Utah's gone on and doing. First, if we're just looking at the corners, yes, you get Samaya Vaughn, your main cornerback, but next to him, yes, Smith Snowden looked good in the limited reps we saw him, but you still would like to bring in some competition, right? And yes, you have competition on the roster still, whether that's a CJ Blocker, other young recruits, and still you get a guy in Teo Johnson. As we said, we don't know exactly what's going to make him, and Teo had playing experience, but you would like to get other guys just to upgrade it, where iron sharpens iron. You want to get other good players and good recruits in to push each other and battle for those starting spots so that you still have good guys out there. And if injuries occur, which they often do in the defensive backfield, you want to have depth. That's what Utah's done a good job of adding. First, at the corner positions, when you're talking about a guy like a Cameron Calhoun, who they bring over from Michigan, that's a guy just a year removed from being a 4-star. Not like he forgot how to play football. He was just buried behind Michigan, a team that just won a national championship. So that's a big get for Utah. Then you get a guy in Keenan Johnson, who played a lot down at Georgia Tech and is another guy I think has an opportunity to be a starter for this Utah team. He started games down there before and has an opportunity to come in for Utah and be the latest defensive back who's able to make plays on the outside for this Utah team. So there's two corners right there for you. And now you add Gilman, kind of the veterans they brought in, but it's not enough just to bring in veterans. You also need to add those young recruits now. And that is also what Utah's done a good job of doing. When you're talking about Jelani Davis, Sammy Hunter, LaTristan Thompson, Corman Shemwell, Maurice Evans, all of these guys recruits from the class. Utah went heavy on defense in this recruiting class, identifying needs that they were going to have in the secondary because they think they had a good feeling a lot of these guys would be moving on. Heck, I think if you asked Utah when the year started, probably also would have told you Samaya Vaughn was set to move on too. So that's where it's nice that Utah has guys that are capable of starting and depth pieces that they're able to evaluate, because we aren't even talking about some of those other recruits that have been in there for a few years. And I'll once again bring up like a CJ Blocker is really intriguing to me. Redshirted this year, but didn't transfer out. So obviously still feels good about his position to compete in spring ball and earn one of those starting opportunities. So I'm very curious to see how that one's going to shake out. And yeah, whether you're talking about Smith Snowden, Cameron Calhoun, Keenan Johnson, Teo Johnson, Jonathan Hall, Nate Ritchie, the secondary backfield, watching these guys battle it out in the spring to see who does the best, I think is going to be one of the highlights of spring camp in general, because these are the huge, especially in college football today, right? Like you have to be able to stop the pass at a high level, just like Utah did a year ago. And that's what all these guys are going to be tasked with doing. I think that with the group that Utah puts out there come the fall of 24, I think they're once again going to be an elite defensive backfield, as they've been year after year under Sharif Shaw and Morgan Scalley. But I am curious which members of the secondary compromise that, because outside of Samaya Vaughn, I'm not confident enough in this exact moment to say he's for sure going to be a starter in anyone else. I think everyone else could play and see time, but I don't know who's going to be the guy, because that's what makes Utah great, is they allow these guys to come in and compete for these starting spots and opportunities. So it's going to be fun to watch and see, but once again, credit Morgan Scalley and Sharif Shaw for identifying some guys. I'm excited to see what Gilman looks like, whether he's able to get up here early in the spring or just like Demooney, because I know Stanford's academic commitments sometimes make it hard for those guys to get out, and especially the timing of this commitment. So get out of school and then join the football team. He might not be able to get up till the summer, but either way, I think Gilman plays a role, sees the field, and I'm excited to see what this defensive backfield continues to shape out to be. But football season's a long time away. Thankfully, we have other Utah athletic sports going on. We've talked a lot about basketball on the show, but want to give gymnastics their sign, as they got a W last Friday. And tomorrow night, they're going to have a huge matchup taking on some of the best teams in college gymnastics. We're going to be discussing that matchup here in one moment. But first, I want to talk to all of you about another sponsor on today's episode of Locked On Utes, in our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season is in the books, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if your team, that's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like a live same game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So once again, it's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And speaking of the NFL, one intriguing matchup I have my eye on is the Browns currently favored against the Texans at with 2.5. And what's interesting about this one is the Browns, of course, going on the road. I know how good the Browns defense has been, and I know how fun the Flacco stories have been, but I don't know. I just really like CJ Stroud, and this is not Rose Bowl bias from 2022. This guy is obviously going to be the offensive rookie of the year. I think him and Puka Nacua should honestly be the co-offensive rookie of the years for what both of these guys have done. But either way, two tremendously talented players in Nakua and Stroud. But getting back to this, I think Stroud is remarkable. I don't like betting against a quarterback like that at home. D'Amico Ryan is the coach of the year for a reason, in my opinion, even though Kevin Stefanski's done a great job too. And, quarterbacks play a big role, and I like Stroud more than I like Flacco. I could very well see this being the game after where we're starting to call him Joe Flunco again, just because it's hard to keep up the run he's been on. So if you guys feel the same way, head over to FanDuel, take the Texans, or just check out all the NFL action at FanDuel Sportsbook. All righty. Want to talk a little bit about the Utah Gymnastics team. Congratulations to head coach Carly Dockendorf for getting her first win since taking over the program after everything that has happened and been reported. I thought the Utah Athletic Department did a good job handling everything there. And now, Utah set for another gymnastics season. And after what was a little bit of a turbulent off season as of late because of everything that happened, it was good to see this Utah team be able to go out there and just execute on the floor and at every routine, obviously, in this dominant 197.300 to 194.350 victory they got in their home opener in the John M. Huntsman Center. First, Miley O'Keefe being gymnast of the week was fantastic, knocking that 10 on her first beam routine of the year. And she was the NCAA champion in beam just a year ago. So not surprising to see that her continue to execute there. Grace McCollum had a 9.9 mark. Also, all of these numbers come to us from the Utah Athletics website. And she is someone who had that injury last year that ended her season earlier than life, but great to see her pick up where she left off. Of course, Jaden Rucker also continued to be stout throughout the night. Amelie Morgan continuing to do work, and as well as some new players too, like a Cammie Winger, who got her first ever collegiate gymnastic opportunity and posted a 9.775. So awesome to see her in the vault lineup, be able to execute there. And this is a Red Rocks team that continues to be a phenomenal, right? They were ranked fourth in this is a Utah Gymnastics team that was ranked fourth opening the season, and now they moved all the way up to second because of how dominant they were in their first meet. And they're going to continue to dominate and need to execute at a high level if they want to emerge victorious in the Sprouts Farmers Market Collegiate Quad. And what is so significant about this quad is it's in the Maverick Center. So it's in Salt Lake. You guys have an opportunity to go out and support this Utah Gymnastics team, as they often do, competing in the Maverick Center in West Valley City, Utah. And the Red Rocks are going to take on top-ranked Oklahoma, number 3 LSU, and number 5 UCLA at 2 p.m. Mountain Time on Saturday, January 13th. It's an exciting stuff, an exciting opportunity for the Utah Gymnastics team here to be able to compete against the best. I mean, let's not forget, because this is also what Utah did on the night of kicking off their season last Friday. This is a team that had their third consecutive Pac-12 regular season and just championship title run. And of course, they also finished third in the NCAA. So one of the best programs in collegiate gymnastics, taking on what's been the best, Oklahoma back-to-back national champs, LSU always elite, and we know how good UCLA's program is too. A great opportunity to support the Utah Gymnastics team and see them continue to put on a show, because this Utah Gymnastics team is so talented still on all 4 events that I think they will be in the national championship race once again. They've only done it 47 years in a row, so why should I start counting them out now? I'm excited about this season for Utah Gymnastics, and I think you guys should be as well. Lots of Utah spring sports getting underway too. Baseball starting up shortly. Softball coming off the crazy run they had will get going in about a month, and it's going to be fun to see what these teams are able to do. And of course, we're still in the midst of basketball while the craziness of football is going on. Lots happening in the world of Utah athletics, so make sure you keep it at Locked On Utes for all your latest updates. On tomorrow's show, I'll be joined by Drake Toll to discuss Utah football being ranked in the top 15 of various way too early top 25 polls. We look forward to seeing you then.